Attempt 6. Jeez, Reimu is hard. Anyways, so this is the last stage of episode 3, and that's, well, last non-extra stage. Oh god, I'm not looking forward to Hakurei. And out of my previous 5 attempts, there have been 2 where I finished the fight, but I didn't like how I commentated it, so I'm redoing it for that sake. And 3 legitimate deaths to Reimu. I'm happy with this Shrine Gate. It actually looks like the Shrine Gate. It's not perfect, but you can tell what it's supposed to be. And here's the Hakurei Shrine. So a little bit on the mapping side of this. Most of these trees, like last time, are copy-pasted, but if you pay attention, you'll notice they're less detailed. That's because this map had a lot of frame rate issues, and there's a reason why the frame rate issues are kind of a bit of a sticking point on this map in particular. Otherwise, yeah, the next thing you might notice is this whole pile of dead demons. I said in map 2 that there was kind of the equivalent of a visual record needle scratch, where I have the throwaway joke with the dead demons. This is what happens when you don't play that for a joke. These things got massacred. There was no battle. And we're about to meet the person who did it. Naturally, 2 other people show up, which is Aya, looking for a story. She with the news reporter whole thing, and Suika, who is just bored, and upon hearing that Reimu sounds mad, she gets out of here. And well, so fun fact: Paparazzi Repelling Barrier is not a spell card I made up. That's actually a canonical spell card. It's from Touhou 12.5. This dialogue is basically taken from Touhou 16 between Reimu and the final boss of that game, except Reimu is still Reimu in this case, and you are the final boss from her perspective. Reimu, unfortunately, is, well, being Reimu. So, first thing you might notice, Reimu has the ability to use many of the attacks you can, including Persuasion Needle, like you saw there, and has Hakurei Amulet, like you saw here. This was... Uh-oh. Oh god, that's such... Yeah, Reimu has the ability to do a lot of damage if you make even a single mistake. So, 158 from first non-spell. Not unrecoverable, but I need to have a really good rest of the fight to have a good shot here. This first card can be dodged mostly by going up against a wall or corner and standing still. Okay, so Reimu is a boss I've probably put more effort into than any other boss. The reason she's the final boss of episode 3 was that I realized that I just couldn't implement her with the skills I had at episode 2. I wanted her to be more impressive. Next up, we have this version of Fantasy Seal, which is the spread version, and it's much more boss-like, but it still visually looks like Fantasy Seal. If you've used it, also Reimu, fun fact, has an entirely different set of animations and attacks for when she's attacking you from the air. The aerial animation set, as a result, gives Reimu the highest frame count, the highest unique number of sprites for any boss up until this point. Ow! This was one of my deaths. I stood inside the circle and got one-shotted by it. Balancing the home... actually, I'll talk about about that in the next thing. Wow, she's just giving me a good setup. She's just going to use needles all day. And yeah, the homing projectiles means that trying to hide in a corner really doesn't work very well. Also, you might notice Reimu moves a lot. That's because she's trying to dodge you. She's the hero of her own story, and oh boy. And now she's getting serious, because you're supposed to have gotten defeated by that. This spell card was a nightmare to balance, because there's so many homing projectiles, and they all home in, but trying to make this spell card not just actually BS is somewhat hard. Serious tactical advice if you're trying to beat Reimu more consistently. Just learn to bomb. Some attacks are just not very feasible to dodge. This spell card is just me showing off what I was able to do with a warp. The amulets warp to the other side of the barrier when they touch it, and it's... This spell card, on the other hand, is me showing off a combination of mapping. Combination of mapping and, oh, yes. Okay, that was a good blink. Blinks was also one of my failures. I think I can get this now, because this card is very consistent, though it looks intimidating. Blink, basically, yeah, whenever Reimu touches one of the boundaries of the arena, she teleports to the other side. That was part of why I needed to have this arena be perfectly rectangular, because that effect doesn't work otherwise. Final spell card's pretty straightforward. It's just a really dense field of amulets that gets progressively faster as her health approaches 0. In addition to that, there's these rotating amulets, which... Ow. And once that phase begins, you have to rotate with them. Okay. (28-28). That was close. Though I did make 2 major mistakes. And that's the thing. This fight's long, and minor mistakes can cost you a lot of health. I lost half of my health, in fact, just to 2 stupid mistakes. Oh, and I took 1 death to the very last card you saw there. It's a pretty hard card to do if you don't have much health going into it, and I suspect many people will end up having to blow through some of their bombs. Which, to be fair, is kind of balanced around that. This game's hard. Reimu is the hardest boss up until this point, and that is by design. Because, she's the hero of her own story. She doesn't feel the need to play fair. It's not like you are. And as a result, I wanted to convey that feeling. And that's why I ended up making her the last boss of episode 3, because she ended up being so dedicated to what she feels was her boss fight, what she felt was, from her perspective, the boss fight that is you, that she goes pretty all into being a really difficult fight. Now, that interruption was a bit of a strange thing, and that's and the person behind that is next video. So, yeah. Honestly, I'm really happy with Reimu's fight, though. It is perhaps the fight I am the most proud of in maybe the entirety of Touhou Doom. So much effort went into this fight. So many frames of animation. So many little things. Balancing it was a nightmare because the homing projectiles, if they got too aggressive, made this fight actually BS. Fantasy Seal Blink was a pain to implement, but I really wanted to push it. I wanted this fight to be the absolute limits of what I could pull off with Decorat at the time. And it was. Next up, the border of Gensokyo. And we will meet the mysterious boundary yokai once and for all.